Hello, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Are You a Fan? If you like this episode, give us a like, share, follow, and we're bringing back the guest from last week. This time, not as many jokes that will offend people, but maybe. How's it feel to be back, Caitlin?
It's good to be back, and I'm honestly really excited to learn more about the Tick because I remember watching like the old animated series in the 90s. I think it was on Cartoon Network when I was little, and then I just kind of really haven't touched it since then. So I'm interested to know like more facts about the Tick.
Dude, remember Saturday morning cartoons?
It's different.
It was different back then. And yeah, no, the Tick is definitely a staple of, I feel, most millennial children. To where if you bring that up to somebody who's forgotten about, it's gonna be a flashback scene.
Memory unlocked.
Right? So let's get into it. Real world, the Tick. So the Tick is a superhero created by cartoonist Ben Edlund. And once again, I always apologize if I butcher names. So in 1986, as a newsletter mascot for the New England comics chain of Boston area comic book stores, the character is a parody of American comic book superheroes. So he was kind of just created as a mascot, which is interesting to know.
Yeah, and I totally get the parody thing because there's definitely, I feel like I remember a lot of like tropes and stuff in the old cartoon on Cartoon Network.
Right? They had we'll get into some of the knockoff characters.
Yeah. So in 1986, 18-year-old cartoonist Ben Edlund created the Tick as a mascot for a newsletter of the Brockton, Massachusetts store New England Comics, where he was a frequent customer. So pretty cool that, to get to make a character for a place that you frequent. That's pretty neat.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
I would, if only. I'm also just not that good of an artist anymore. So Edlund expanded this into stories, beginning with the 3-page tale, The Tick, in the New England Comics newsletter, issue number 14 through 15, July through August, September through October in 1986, in which the hero escapes from a mental institution.
And I seem to remember something about a mental institution in the comics, that he's just kind of a crazy dude.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Which if I remember, even in most of his portrayals, that's the general consensus. He's just kind of a crazy guy.
Yeah.
Which I do love that.
So the character became popular, and the store financed a black and white comic book series, with the first issue released in June 1988 and subsequently reprinted at least 9 times through the next decade, including later editions with additional content. The Tick's sidekick, who I love. I love this sidekick. The Tick's sidekick, Arthur, was introduced in the Tick number 4 in April of 1989.
Also, I didn't realize kind of how old this character was created. I don't know why I assumed he was just created in the 90s and that, but just knowing that he was a bit of a decade earlier, kind of cool.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, his sidekick is hilarious.
Yes.
So spin-offs followed, featuring characters such as Paul the Samurai, Man-Eating Cow, and Chainsaw Vigilante. So Eden continued to write and illustrate these projects, initially through his years as an undergraduate film student at the Massachusetts College of Art, which kind of cool knowing that that was what he wanted to do. He's not just a random guy who's like, hey, here's this character, whatever. And that.
Yeah. And like I said, that's why it's so interesting that it just started as a little mascot for a comic book store that he liked, and now we come up to 1994. The Fox network introduced the Tick as a Saturday morning cartoon series, which Edlund wrote and co-produced. Lasting 3 seasons, the animated series provided the Tick's greatest mainstream fame, because that's where we all know it from, is that.
Exactly. I guarantee probably locally the comic is a big deal, but internationally the cartoon,
yeah,
that's what made it. Even the live actions, I'm they were all right, but they weren't the cartoon.
No, not at all.
Townsend Coleman voiced the title character, and Mickey Dolenz played his sidekick Arthur in season 1. Rob Paulson took over the Arthur role during season 2 and 3 due to issues relating to standards and practices. Edlund was not allowed to feature the comic series supporting cast characters in cartoon due to characters such as Chainsaw Vigilante and Paul the Samurai being deemed inappropriate for children's television show.
Which, given some of the stuff that they were like, yeah, just show that to kids in the 90s, how was Chainsaw Vigilante would not have been the worst character we probably were exposed to.
It's one of those, like, nowadays I hear people, they're like, oh, there's so much violence in cartoons. I'm like, I watched a drunken Wolverine try to bang Cyclops' wife as a child. That's what I was watching. A drunken man who was 5'1" walk around and just be angry.
So, like, Chainsaw Vigilante, I mean, don't think it was that big of a deal.
Same.
As such, new supporting cast characters such as Die Fledermaus, a Batman parody, American Maid, a Wonder Woman parody, which that seems way more insensitive.
Right.
Like, the female character probably cleans stuff. Like, all right. And Sewer Urchin, a parody of Dustin Hoffman's character from Rain Man. Also, hey, what are you doing? As far as what's appropriate for children. Let's take a parody of a man who is
severely
mentally challenged.
Yeah.
And that will probably be funny for kids. I'm like, forget it. Throw Chainsaw Vigilante back in there. How is that worse than woman stereotype and guy who lives in the sewers with mental problems?
I will argue American Maid, if I remember correctly, she was kind of based on the Statue of Liberty, her design.
Yeah, that does make sense.
So a little less insensitive when you're like, oh yeah, I guess, kind of.
American Lady.
But still, yeah, a parody of Dustin Hoffman's Rain Man.
Ooh, boy.
Man, this show would have been canceled. So sadly, I need you to stop scrolling up down. It shows your name over the
sorry.
words.
So, can you read it when it moves, Richard? How's that dyslexia treating you, buddy?
Not great. So sadly, Edlund did not secure ownership rights to said character. As such, the characters are owned by the animation studio Saban, who made the series and are exclusive to the animated series continuity. Which, oh man, at least poor man copyright your stuff before you send it to someone.
I wonder if I wonder if it's one of those situations where he didn't even think that it would get the notoriety that it has now gotten. So it's kind of one of those where you're like, it's just a little character that I came up with. It's whatever. And then next thing you know, it's like someone realizes there's like a bunch of money in this and you're kind of up a creek, you know?
Yeah, which really, I always feel bad for ours when that happened because all I remember, my mom's big about that with like my comedy and stuff and that. She's always like, remember copyright, remember get signatures. And poor man copyright, folks. What it is you go to the bank, you get a paid same day envelope. You mail it to yourself with the content of whatever you've created. And that because the post office will date and stamp it. So that way, if later on somebody tries to steal it, you can prove I was the creator.
I had never heard of poor man's copyright, but that's...
I'm big about
that's a good one.
That's a good one.
So, reruns on Comedy Central helped make the series a cult hit with adults. The 1997 book, The Tick, Mighty Blue Justice by Greg Hyland, creator of Lethargic Lad, was published as a tie-in with the animated series.
Lethargic Lad.
That, I feel like Lethargic Lad, very... Yeah, that's my superhero. Real sleepy.
Which also I do find funny. It's like the Comedy Central thing. I'm like, isn't that Comedy Central's job is to make cult classics?
I feel like it, yeah. There's a lot of stuff. But then again, it's like I'm not surprised I was exposed to The Tick when I was allowed to watch like Tank Girl in syndication.
True.
So
not a show for kids. Or not a movie for kids.
But now I'm like this, so that answers the question.
Okay, so the Tick seems to have no memory of his life before being the Tick, and indeed not much memory of anything more than... The Tick seems to have no memory of his life before the Tick, and indeed not much memory of anything. More than likely, this is due to frequent head injuries. Each media adaptation has a different origin of the Tick.
Yeah,
There's a lot of them... head injuries.
Yeah, I do remember that, and CTE's no joke, kids. Gotta wear your helmets. In the original comic series, the Tick is apparently legally insane, having escaped from a mental institution near the city. Something I love about these spoofy comics when they just like like Townsville in Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah,
like just like it's the city, and it's like what city could be any of them? Like it's
got
the
buildings.
Citytropolis.
Which that is great. So a square-jawed, muscular, bright blue costume figure with antennas sticking up from his head, the Tick is a surrealistic parody of superheroes, in the vein of Dave Sims' character Cerebus the Aardvark. Some of the names I'm loving. Like these sound like Comedy Central or Saturday Night Live characters.
Yeah, there's some of these names that I don't think I've thought of in years, and now they're just in my brain again. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing.
You're going to be giving a lot of millennials flashbacks with this episode.
So he's a well-intended, friendly, childlike, good-natured, high-spirited, bombastic, frequently obtuse, and prone to quipping odd, dim remarks and inspirational speeches filled with bizarre metaphors.
Spoon,
and I'm also excited about seeing Arthur's like frequent battle cry.
Yes. So the Tick is known for his nonsensical battle cry, Spoon, which I just said, which he decides upon one day while eating a bowl of Drama Flake cereal. God, the names, I'm loving them. Warburton describes his perception of the Tick character as Warburton played him.
I think that's one thing if you take away from it that just is something that I feel like some of us who don't remember all the cartoons and stuff we grew up watching, just one day you'll just be standing and your brain just goes, Spoon. And you're like, where? And it's like, oh yeah, that's from the Tick. So...
Oh, such a great show.
His past is a mystery, so everything that he looks at or perceives can be brand new, and he can't get really, really excited and intrigued by something that's just a commonality for everybody else. That's humorous. He's like a child. Everything's new. So you just bring that attitude to him, a childlike attitude of discovering things. And that's a quote from Patrick Warburton, who played the Tick.
Which... I remember the character, and yeah, he's just the most naive, childistic, like, and not in a weird, creepy way, but just like this dude who's just like fascinated by everything around him.
Everything's exciting.
Like every encounter, even going into battle, he's like, ooh, fun.
Yeah, everything's just, if you take away one thing, it's approach life the way the Tick would.
Exactly.
Childlike wonder.
I wish I wasn't dead inside. So originally the Tick's costume was meant to be brown, which, the Tick, it makes sense. But it was decided that blue looked better in print. I always find that fascinating when like just certain changes to like characters' costumes or colors is 100%. They're like, this would just be easier to do it this way. And that I remember we covered that in the Dragon Ball Z Goku episode. And that the guy was just tired of blacking in the ink of the hair, and he's like, make him blonde so we don't have to do that. So in the Tick versus the Tick, Warren the Tick is confronted by Barry, an unstable pseudo-hero who also calls himself the Tick. Barry wears a brown costume similar to the Tick's, which fun callback to what, like, I feel like that. I love inside jokes like that in comics.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense with the tie-in of just so many different superheroes that it seems like every superhero has at least one nemesis that's just him in different colors. And you're like, well, okay.
That's 100%. Like, and I love that. Yeah, because like Superman has Bizarro, and yeah, oh my God, yeah, that's funny on multiple levels.
Yeah. There's layers. There's layers.
There's definite layers.
So the Tick is named after an arachnid, much like Spider-Man. The logo of the series also resembles that of the 1994 Spider-Man series.
Which makes sense. Also, yeah, d-rael did not know that ticks were arachnids.
Yeah, they got 8 legs.
And it's one of those I never thought about. I don't know what I thought they were.
Well, mites are also arachnids. Any 8-legged creature.
Yeah, when I was doing the research, like the little thing, it's like arachnids. I was like, I clicked on, it's just like all these are arachnids. I'm like, what? Have I been lied to? Have I just not known the truth?
Your eyes are wide open now.
I'm seeing the code, man. So, according to the live-action series, the tick is 6 feet 6 inches tall, weighs 230 pounds, 6 inches and 170 pounds less than his dimensions in the comics, and has blue hair and eyes. Just love it. Like, yeah, under the costume, it's just all blue.
Also blue. So in the comic series, the Tick gets a job at the Weekly World Planet newspaper. He works in the same office as Clark Oppenheimer, who is also a superhero called the Caped Wonder. Gee, I wonder what that's a spoof of. Oppenheimer has all the typical Superman powers, including X-ray vision or see-through vision, super strength, invulnerability, flight, and my personal favorite, heat vision or very hot vision, and super hearing. Consequently, he looks down on the Tick as a lower form of superhero with limited powers.
Which is funny as a parody because I'm like Superman looks down on nobody.
True, but I love the image of like, especially with Superman's popularity, of just this uppity dude who's like, oh,
right?
You're the Tick. Well, I have very hot vision. And it's like, oh, wow.
I also love
Jankies.
it. I love it when they make those minute changes to certain words in that, like they're going to be sued. And they're like, well, we can't call it heat vision because...
Superman has heat vision. We can't call it X-ray vision. X-rays, those things are patented. We call it see-through vision.
In very hot vision. So, like many superheroes, the Tick has a sidekick, a rather plump former accountant named Arthur. Oh, I did love Arthur
yes,
in the series.
Dude, yes.
So Arthur wears a white moth suit that allows him to fly. However, he is often mistaken for a bunny due to the long ear-like antenna of his costume and the fact that his wings are often folded up. I remember, do you remember when Taco Bell used to have toys?
Yes.
Do you remember when they did the Tick? I had the little
100%.
fly thing. I had his little fly toy. I
Yes.
loved that thing.
Oh my gosh. Let's put, toys back in things. I mean,
right?
I think they still have them in like Happy Meals and stuff, but I want to be able to...
I know McDonald's still has it, but like I think most of them do, but you never think about Taco Bell or Wendy's having toys.
Yeah, and they used to. That
Yeah.
used to be every fast food chain's gimmick, was put toys and stuff. And just for Taco Bell to team up with the people who are behind the Tick just seems like the perfect thing.
Oh, yeah. Taco Bell would definitely be all over that.
Yes. So the Tick is impulsive, and Arthur serves as a sort of conscience, which I remember that a lot.
Yep.
There was a lot of like, the Tick was like, we're going to do this thing, and Arthur's like, oh gosh.
I think it's a good idea.
He also figures out the schemes of villains and formulates plans to stop them. Arthur's battle cry is, not the face, not the face. And I do remember that. Arthur just being so like, oh,
terrified.
can we not do that?
I remember and it goes back to like, these were, for what they were, I'd love to go back and rewatch the series because I remember some dark, gritty episodes.
Yeah.
There was one where they go to a superhero bar, but all their sidekicks are forced to go into a a shed. And like Arthur's like walking up and they're like, sorry.
Sidekick shed.
Yeah, they're like, sorry, no sidekicks. You gotta go over into the sidekick place. And he's like, wait, but it's funny because he is the brains of the operation.
He is. He kind of keeps it all on track.
Right? Like, yeah, Tick may be strong, but he would not be as successful without this guy. And he's just like, no, go in there. And it's just all these characters, like a dog smoking or something. And there's like a gorilla who's like upset that he's there. Just like a real dark, gritty episode. So that's what we got for Real World. And this is one of those characters where Real World and in-universe kind of cross paths. Because I'm sure some of you are wondering, like, why are you giving us so much in-universe lore? I'm like, well, if you listen to the episode, like a lot of this also talks about like why they did it that way.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get strictly into in-universe. Let's go. So in the comic series, the Tick is a wacky hero who escapes from a mental hospital and starts fighting crime in the city. Not much is known about the Tick's past because of his amnesia. However, in one comic, it is revealed that the Tick had a wife, Chloris. He was a married man who became obsessed with trying to figure out what he wanted to do most in the world. Just the lamest just the most, I don't know.
I like it though, because sometimes I like to believe that I could go into a fugue state and just be a cooler person. So
yeah.
I dig it. I'm like, we'd all like to just be like, you know what? I hit my head real bad now.
I'm a hero.
Now I'm the bride of Mothman. I don't know what to tell you, but that's who I am.
Yeah, I can agree. There's days where I'm driving and I'm like, I could just never come home and just start fighting crime in the alleys.
That's the dream. The Tick is living the dream.
100%.
So Chloris, due to her frustration with his obsession, tries to beat some sense into him and reminds him of his responsibilities at home, along with her desire to have a child with him. She gets fed up with him and storms off in anger, much to Tick's dismay. Later that night, he leaves her a note by her bedside, telling her that he is going for a soul-searching journey to find his destiny. Which, yeah, imagine just being like, man, my life's so boring. I have a kid, house in the suburbs. You know what? I'm just going to snap. I'm
finding it funny because this is very weirdly similar to the plot of Breaking Bad.
Blue stuff.
Yeah. Oh my God. You think the writer of Breaking Bad was like a fan of the Tick?
I'd like to believe that. I don't care if it's true. That's what I'm believing now.
That's our headcanon now.
Yeah.
The writer of Breaking Bad is a stan of the Tick.
And he's like, you know what? What if we did the Tick, but crime?
Right? A lot more drugs involved. So he... I do love that. I seriously though, I do love that.
It's up there now. It's in everybody's head. Live with it.
Oh, so okay. So he wanders around from place to place until he finds out who he is and what his purpose is in life. He soon wakes up from an intoxicated daze after a night of drinking and finding himself roaming the Rocky Mountains. Starts having delusional visions of a little cartoon character that tells him to attack a group of random college frat boys.
Hey man, if I had a nickel for every time that happened to me. I mean, we've all been there, right? But seriously, I love his character backstory, his origin story, because I'm like, you could just do that.
Yeah.
If you wanted to. It's like, no, man, I got bills to pay. I'm like, you don't have bills to pay if you're a superhero vigilante.
Well, I'm thinking about this is how, because this is where we kind of stop with his backstory, because this leads into him ending up in the mental institution. And so we've already covered everything else that happens with the real world. But thinking about that, that is realistic in the sense, if I decided to just go wander the Rocky Mountains. We're in Colorado, by the way.
So you can do that.
So I can do that. And I just was in a fugue state from drinking all night, and I saw some college frat bros being jerks or something. I could go attack them, and the worst that's going to happen to me, with me being like, I'm a hero, I was saving people, is I'm going to end up in a mental institution.
Get a free pair of grippy socks.
I get a free pair of grippy socks.
Man, I could have taken a whole different trajectory after I got my pair.
You could have been a hero, Caitlin. And now I'm disappointed that I've never been at that point. I'm like...
We can get you there.
Yeah. So a weirdly realistic backstory of the character. Okay, so let's get into powers and abilities. So the Tick possesses superhuman strength and mass, which makes him capable of inflicting great damage on his surroundings if he is not careful. I remember that was a major plot point of so many episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Is he's just a large, clumsy man.
Yes. This is more and more you. The more we listen to this, I'm like, Richard. D-rael, I mean. Who's that?
I'm like, oh my God. A large, clumsy man who destroys things around him, not even out of anger. I'm like, This is sound. No wonder I liked the character. So his full strength is never actually quantified, although he is capable of lifting whole cars with a single hand and comfortably bending steel girders. In the pilot of the 2016 series, the Tick claims to have the strength of 10, perhaps 20 men. A crowded bus stop of men.
The insane metaphors really remind me of you, too.
Oh my God, I am...
Just the amount of times I've heard you say phrases, and I'm like, that's not quite. But it makes sense, I suppose.
It's technically, you're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
But you're not right.
The Tick is also nigh invulnerable, which means it's almost impossible to injure him in any serious way, although he is vulnerable to feelings of pain, and his antennae are particularly sensitive, which, you know, makes sense. That's what the good Lord made antennae for, is to be sensitive and sense things, so.
Right? And this, okay, so this is my favorite power of his. It's in the final power we're going over. Finally, the Tick possesses something referred to as drama power, or basically a tendency for the Tick's powers to increase as the situation becomes more dramatic. He can also survive in space without a suit and underwater without oxygen for at least a long time.
I just love, like, yes, what are your superpowers? I can survive underwater without breathing for a period of time, like a long one. And it's like, okay, I'd like, so you can like breathe underwater. Cause like in my mind, he's just really good at holding his breath.
Yeah.
It's not really, this is more like David Blaine type superpowers than.
Right? I'm just imagining, because he is arachnid. Like, have you ever seen an insect underwater? Like, yeah, they can just be underwater for a long time.
Well, fun fact, I'm pretty sure there is a type of spider
that
has like the little bubble that it keeps over its abdomen
to
breathe.
There's a spider, and fun fact, a lizard.
I've seen the lizard.
But yeah, so I do love the drama power. Just the more dire the situation gets, the more dramatic it gets, the stronger he becomes.
Which is another one of those that it almost sounds like not a superpower.
Right?
Because it's like, we've all been in like high adrenaline situations, and you're like, man, I didn't know I could move that fast. Or, you know, stories of people like climbing out of rubble or like moving rubble off of people to save them. And I'm like, that's just a dude.
Which is why I think I love this.
It's real. You could do this if you wanted to.
Like, yeah, they're like, oh, it's a parody. I'm like, no, this sounds like a real person that's probably out there. I mean, heck, we all remember the period in the early 2000s when people were dressing like superheroes and going out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah, 100%. Okay, so let's get into other media.
All right, so as far as other media goes, he was also in The Tick. That was a 1994 TV series. So it was a series that aired from 94 to 97 on Fox with Townsend Coleman voicing The Tick. So that, I feel like, is probably the one that we remember the most from our childhood, is the OG one on Fox.
Oh, yeah. I think I remember it was on Fox, and then, yeah, later on Comedy Central.
Because it still was Saturday morning cartoons, but I remember Fox used to do, like, a Saturday morning.
It was Fox and WB.
Yes.
And that,
yes.
or CW. You had the WW, or it had the WB.
Before it became CW. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Those are the main two. And that. So also The Tick 2001 TV series, from 2001 to 2002 live-action television series with Patrick Warburton as the Tick, which, honestly, who could have played him better?
Oh, yeah.
That guy is, like, for those of you who don't know, that's the dude who voiced Krunk and also looks like Krunk.
Yeah. Yeah, just perfect.
Oh, his delivery.
Yes, on point. And such, like, a superhero voice.
Right?
Like, I could 100%... When I think of, like, the Spoon battle cry,
right.
It's his voice.
I think I've seen, like, 1 or 2 episodes of it. It wasn't bad. I forget why. Probably I didn't have money to keep my subscription to Netflix at the time.
Yeah. So there was also The Tick, a 2016 TV series. So that aired from 2016 to 2019, which is a live-action Amazon Prime television series with Peter... Oh boy, that's a Polish name. Serafinowicz as the Tick. Patrick Warburton was involved in the production of this series, though.
Which I had seen some, like, I've seen clips of it, like, on TikTok, or, like, I've seen previews. I don't know about it. It's one of those I'm like, I definitely probably should give it a shot.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those that falls in that era of the cash grab of what did millennials like when they were kids? What can we rehash and spoon feed to them now that they're adults for their money?
Right.
Kind of thing.
And I'm curious to see if it's good. The one reason I immediately was disinterested is he doesn't have his antennas.
Oh, garbage.
Yeah, he's just in a blue suit and just big guy. I'm like, where are the antennas? Why? That's just a bald man in a blue wetsuit.
Yeah, at that point, you kind of gotta stick the antennae on there. Yeah. You're like, there he goes.
Because even the one with Patrick Warburton, even the one with Patrick Warburton still had the antennas.
Yeah.
And I loved it because, like, it's funny because my brother didn't. He's like, how do they get them to move and stuff? So, like,
that's showbiz, baby.
Right. And I guess somebody told him, it's like, we use, like, controllers and wires. It's remote control. And he's like, oh my God. I'm like, how'd you not
put two and two together?
I'm
like, the suit's haunted. It's witchcraft.
But, okay. So that's what we got for The Tick. And I guess we'll end it as we always do. You a fan, Caitlin?
I am a fan. It was nice to get to know more about The Tick that helped shape my childhood. And also finding out that, you know, if you want to be a superhero,
you can
you can do it.
Yeah. And also, I just really want to reiterate, this is Breaking Bad.
This is Breaking Bad.
And I'm a fan of The Tick. For anyone that's still listening, if you got something out of this, enjoyed the episode, or even liked the character before from a movie, comic, cartoon, hell, even that t-shirt that you saw one time, you're a fan too. If you want to jump on this train, why not subscribe and share with a friend? D-rael out. Y'all keep riding them rails.